Everyone, welcome to Akademi Ekonometri. In economics course, we will cover week 3, part 1 today. These are the topics we are going to cover in week 3. First of all, I will try to explain what does a market mean. Then we will cover demand and supply separately. After that, we will combine them and do a demand and supply analysis. Finally, we will try to understand the shifts in the demand and supply separately and simultaneously. Let's start. First of all, what is markets? Before defining the market, we have to understand what is a firm and what is a consumer. Firm is actually a supplier of the goods and services. Consumers, they want to purchase goods and services which are supplied by the firms. So basically consumers are the individuals and the suppliers are the firms who produce the stuff, the goods and services. Of course, they have to exchange. So exchange happens through price which is established in the markets. Supply or demand factors can change the market price. We are going to cover this part at the end of this course, at the end of this week actually. So we will combine supply and the demand. These two factors will decide on the market price. Sellers and buyers come together to form a market. A market can be a physical place, but it doesn't have to be a physical place. In 21st century, we have a lot of markets which are online, which are not physical. One example can be eBay. And in these markets, goods and services are basically exchanged. So basically, firms sell whatever they got, and consumers buy these stuff, goods and services, on the market price, market equilibrium price. So the next topic we are going to cover is the invisible hand. This concept is actually generated by father of economics, who is Adam Smith actually. Adam Smith is a Scottish economist who wrote a book called Wealth of Nations in 1776. And according to him, the supply and the demand factors just work simultaneously and without the involvement of anybody else. They decide on the equilibrium demand, equilibrium quantity in the market, and the equilibrium price in the market. So basically, without any intervention, they decide on a specific price and they decide on a specific quantity, which is bought and sold in the market. So the example that I showed here is actually trying to explain what does the invisible hand do. I explained that a little bit before, but right now I want to elaborate it with using different markets. And these different markets will be connected to each other by using this invisible hand logic. First of all, I want to talk about the fish market, but we all know that this fish is first caught in the ocean or in the sea by the fishermen. Fishermen catch this fish and then they sell this fish to a processing facility. This facility is actually a demander in that fish market. And the fishermen, they are the suppliers. So basically, these two markets are linked, and then they decide on a specific price and a specific quantity. And nobody else is involving in this decision process. So basically, the supply and the demand forces are working invisibly to decide on a specific price and a specific quantity. And all of these the decision process is happening by the information generated in the supply and the demand parts. And then if we continue, we know that after this processing facility process the fish, they are going to sell or they are going to give this fish to a logistic firm. And this logistic firm is going to charge some money from the processing facility. Again, they have to decide on a specific price. Again, there's a market linkage here. One invisible hand is in action here again. This processing facility is actually demanding the service, and this logistic firm is supplying the service. There's a connection again. And then this logistic firm is giving or delivering this fish to the supermarket, and the supermarket is displaying the fish, and finally we purchase the fish and we finally eat the fish. So basically all of these markets, these separate markets, are linked together, and between these linkages or between these two different separate markets, there is a specified or agreed price, an agreed quantity. And these agreements or these decisions or decision process happening with the invisible hand. Nobody is involved in this kind of decision except the suppliers and the demanders. So let's start with the demand side. We are going to cover two parts. The first part is the demand, and the second part is the supply. Then we will combine the demand and the supply, and we will try to understand what is the equilibrium price or the market price and the equilibrium quantity in that specific given market. So in the demand side, first of all, we are going to define a term which is called quantity demanded. Quantity demanded is the amount of a good purchased at a given price. So basically there is a given price, and in that given price, consumers are purchasing X amount of goods. We are going to cover quantity demanded a lot in the coming slides. But first, let's cover what is law of demand. Law of demand says that all of other things equal, there is an inverse relationship between price and the quantity demanded. So here you need to be careful. I'm not saying there is an inverse relationship between the price and the demand, but instead I'm saying there is an inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded, because quantity demanded and the demand are totally different things. I'm going to explain the differences in a moment. But law of demand says that when the price increases, the quantity demanded will decrease. But when the price decreases, the quantity demanded will increase. So basically there's an inverse relationship. They move in the opposite directions. Now let's try to understand what's demand schedule. Demand schedule is actually a table which shows the relationship between price and the quantity demanded. So there are two different variables, one price and the other one is the quantity demanded, and it's just showing the relationship, and it's showing the table of these relationship. Demand curve is the graph of the relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. And the market demand is actually the horizontal sum of all individual quantities demanded by each buyer in the market at each price. So basically, for each price, we will sum or horizontally sum all of the individual quantities demanded by each buyer. Let's assume that we have 5 buyers, 5 individuals in the market, and for each price, we have different amount of quantity demanded. So for a specific given price, if we sum the quantity demanded for each consumer, we will get the market demand or market quantity demanded for that specific price. We are going to talk on that also. So first of all, let's start with the demand schedule. So here I'm showing you one individual's demand schedule, and that individual is Meredith. So the good we want to talk about is salmon fillet. So on the first column, we have the price of salmon fillet, and on the second column, we have the quantity demanded of salmon fillet. So what you can see here is there is an inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. It's really obvious because the price is high initially. When the price goes down, the quantity demanded is going up. So basically, higher price is related with the lower quantity demanded, and the lower price is related with higher quantity demanded. So this is law of demand. We can try to draw that relationship on a graphic. On the y-axis, we have the price as usual. On the x-axis, we have the quantity. And the good we are going to talk about is again salmon fillet. We are basically trying to put all of these numbers on this graph. when we do that, we get the demand curve for salmon fillet in that market. Again, the relationship is inverse, negative relationship. When the price increases, the quantity demanded of salmon fillet is decreasing. You can get that from the slope of this demand curve, which is negative, which tells the inverse relationship as well. So on this graphic, I want to explain you one more thing. Remember, I told you that the demand and the quantity demanded, these two concepts are totally different than each other. When I tell you quantity demanded, you need to understand that I'm talking about a specific amount of demand for a given price, for a specific price. For example, when the price of that salmon fillet is $15, the quantity demanded is just 2 units or 2 salmon fillet. When the price decreases to $10, the quantity demanded is 4 salmon fillet. So basically, quantity demanded is actually showing you on which point you are on a given demand curve. But when I tell you the demand, you need to understand this whole curve, the whole structure. The demand is constructed by a lot of different informations about the income of the consumers, information about the related goods, price of related goods, information about the future price expectations, these kind of things. So basically, when I tell you the demand, you need to understand the whole structure, the whole curve. But when I tell you the quantity demanded, what you need to understand is there's a specific price and we got a specific amount which is demanded in that market. So these are total different things. How do you find the market demand? In this simplistic example, we have only 2 consumers. The first one is Meredith. You already know the demand schedule of Meredith. Right now, we add the demand schedule of Direk, and he has, on the third column, he has the quantity demanded here. So what we all need to do is we just need to sum the quantity demanded for each given price. For $20, both of them are not consuming. For $17.5, Meredith is consuming 1, but Direct is not consuming. So basically, we are just summing these numbers and we get the market demand. So we have to use the first column for the price and we have to use the last column for the quantity demanded, for the market demand. We can do the same kind of calculation by doing the horizontal sum on the graphics. If you do that, we know that from the linear algebra or simple math, the graphic or the slope of this final graphic will be flatter compared to Direct and Meredith's demand curves, slope of demand curves. Shifts in the demand. So the most important part of this course is actually understanding the difference between the shift in the demand and the movement along a demand curve. A movement along a demand curve happens only if there is a change in the price of the good. So basically, if the price of the good changes, the demand curve stays intact. It doesn't move. It doesn't move to right. It doesn't move to left. It will just stay the same. But the point we are on a demand curve will change only. So we already know the law of demand. There's an inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. So basically, when the price of a good changes, we will be on the same demand curve, but we will be on a different point. So let's assume that we are initially at this point A. This is PA, the initial price, the initial quantity of demanded. The final price is going down. Since there is an inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded, the final quantity demanded will be at QB. So basically, we are on the same demand. Demand is not moving anywhere, but only we are moving on the demand curve. This kind of movement happens only if there's a change in the price of the good or the service we are talking about. But when we are talking about the shift, this kind of movement or the shift happens only if there's a change in non-price factors. So basically, if there's a change and if that change is not coming from the price, that means it's a non-price factor. And if this kind of change happens, the entire curve will shift to left or right. Now let me explain you what do I mean when I say shift. So that's our initial demand curve. So there's no change yet. And we are on this point initially. And finally something happens and the demand is decreasing. Let's see what happened. A health warning causes buyers to demand fewer cantaloupes. So basically, the demanders think that cantaloupes are not healthy anymore. That's why their preferences towards these cantaloupes or towards these fruits is changing actually. That's why people or the consumers, individuals, are demanding less of that good for each price. So that's why the demand is shifting from D1 to D2. So when I say consumers are demanding low or less for each price level, I mean this. For $5, initially they were demanding 6, but right now after the demand changed, for $5 they are demanding 3. The quantity demanded is 3. If we imagine that we have a price line here, which is, let's say, 7, initially they were demanding, let's say, 5 units, or the quantity demanded is 5, but after the shift in the demand, the quantity demanded is just 1 here. So basically, for each price level, the demanders are demanding less after the shift. We will say when the demand shifts, when the demand decreases, demand shifts to left or down. So shifting left or the shifting down mean the same. They mean the same. When the demand increases, we will say demand is shifting to right or demand shifts to up. They will mean the same thing. So what causes demand to shift up, especially in this situation? A medical study reports that eating cantaloupe lowers cholesterol, and this causes buyers to demand more cantaloupe. So basically, they think that the cantaloupes are healthier than before. That's why they want to buy cantaloupe more than before for each price line, each price level. Before they were buying 6 units for $5. Now they are buying 9 units for $5. So basically, for each price level, they tend to buy more after the demand shifts. The most important thing here is that when demand increases, it is going to shift right or up. When demand decreases, it is going to shift left or down. So the next few slides give a summary of possible movements and shifts that we could see when considering a demand curve. So let's see this one, increasing quantity demanded. So the economic activity or the economic thing here is the price is decreasing. As you can see, the price is decreasing from 12 to 10. And as a result of that, the quantity demanded is increasing from 7 to 8. So basically, there is a movement along the demand curve. The demand curve is not shifting. It stays intact. Let's try to see the opposite of the previous slide. In this case, again, the price is changing, nothing else. Price is increasing from $30 to $50. And we know that a change in the price causes only a movement along the demand curve. That's why the initial quantity demanded was 6 and the final quantity demanded is 4. The demand curve stays intact. Increase in demand. We covered this part a little bit before. When the demand increases, it needs to shift to right or up. Same meaning. And this happens because of the non-price factors or change in non-price factors. Entire demand curve here is shifting to right, and consumers are willing to buy more at any price level or all price levels. If demand decreases, again, this happens because of a change in non-price factors. The whole demand curve shifts, shifting to left or shifting to down, and consumers are willing to buy less at any price level. The next topic we are going to cover is the demand shifters. When I say demand shifters, basically I mean that what causes demand to shift. The first one is changes in income. So first of all, to understand what happens to demand when income changes, we have to understand, or we have to identify the type of the good we are talking about. We divide the goods into two different categories, and this first one is the normal good, and the second one is the inferior good. The normal good is the good in which we buy more of when we get more income. So in other meaning, if you feel richer or if you have more money, you will buy more of that good. So basically there's a direct relationship between income and the demand. So if you're talking about a normal good, and if your income increases, your demand curve will shift to right. But inferior goods are just the opposite of the normal goods. You will buy less of these goods when you get more income. So basically, these goods are kind of a goods that you don't want to buy when you feel richer. The basic example I can give you here is the mac and cheese. The mac and cheese I'm talking about is you go to a supermarket, and you buy that mac and cheese with a lot of chemicals inside of it. They use a lot of chemicals to give that the yellowish color. So basically, these products are not really healthy. And if you are not poor anymore, if you become a rich person, why to buy these unhealthy goods? You are not going to buy more of these goods. Instead, you're going to buy maybe a high quality steak. So basically, inferior goods are the goods you're going to buy less when you feel richer. So that's why there's an inverse relationship between income and demand. So let me try to draw what happens. Let's say this is our demand one. If you're talking about the normal good, and I refers to your income, when I increases, and if you're talking about normal good, when I increases, demand will increase. It's going to D2. Let's say from D1 to D2. When I decreases, demand will decrease. Demand will go to D1 to D3. This is the other demand. If you're talking about the inferior good, when you become richer, your demand will decrease. There's an inverse relationship, so demand will decrease from D1 to D3. And if you become poorer, that means you're going to buy more of that mac and cheese. So the demand will shift D1 to D2. So the next, before coming to the next shifter for the demand, let me give you some examples about normal goods and the inferior goods. About the inferior goods, I told you already one example, which is mac and cheese, which is, in my opinion, is not really healthy good. Ramen, which is really cheap food as well. It's kind of a noodle. You put some hot water in it, then you eat in seconds. And canned meat. When you go to supermarket, you can buy a lot of canned meats, and they might be healthy, but they are really cheap. So basically, when you become rich, you will buy steak instead of canned meat. That's why we call canned meat inferior goods. Store brand goods. Store brand goods means, for example, you went to a supermarket, and let's say the name of the supermarket is X, and when they are selling milk, the brand of that milk is X milk. So these kind of goods are generally cheaper, and people tend to think that these goods are also low quality. So when people become poor, they tend to buy more of these goods, and when people become rich, people tend to buy less of these goods. That's why we call these goods inferior goods. And other things, secondhand clothing, it's also inferior good, because when you're really rich, why should you buy a secondhand clothing? You will directly go to high quality brands and buy name brand clothing. Of course, it depends on your preference, but I'm talking about the general consumer preferences. The second demand shifter is the price of related goods. So we are going to cover two different types of related goods. The first one is the complements, and the second one is the substitutes. Complements are the goods that you use together. For example, sugar and tea, or cream and coffee. Substitutes are the goods that can be used in place of each other. For example, Pepsi and Coca-Cola. You went to a supermarket, you want to buy Pepsi, but there is no Pepsi. Instead, there is Coca-Cola in the next shelf. So basically, you buy Coca-Cola. So you can substitute Pepsi with Coca-Cola. So, but there is a different relationship when we compare complements and substitutes. Let me explain those relationships in this empty scratch paper. So let's start with complements first. And the example we are going to have is, let's say, cream and coffee. So what we will do is, we will draw two different markets. The first one is the cream market. And by the way, you wanna drink your coffee with cream. Basically, when there is no cream, you don't want to drink coffee. That's your preference. Keep that in your mind. Coffee. And then let's draw a regular demand curve for both of it. And let's say the price of cream is increasing. So basically, we will create the impact from cream. The impact happens in the cream market, but that impact is going to affect the coffee market. So when the price of cream is increasing, we know that this price change is going to affect the cream market. Like that, we will have a movement along the demand curve. So basically, let's say PC1, PC2, quantity C1, quantity C2. So when the price of that good increases, we know that you're going to consume less of it. So basically, the quantity demanded in the cream market is decreasing. So you're consuming less cream because of the increasing price. So since you're consuming less cream, that means you're going to consume less coffee, because you are a person who wants to consume the coffee with the cream only. So basically, this change coming from the cream market is not going to be considered as the change in the price, but instead it's going to be considered as the change in the non-price factor. So basically, this change is going to decrease the demand in the coffee market. So the demand of the, let's say, CO is referring coffee. So the demand of the coffee is going to decrease. As you can see, there is an inverse relationship. When I increase the price of one good, the demand of the other good is going to decrease. So that's the idea for the complements. Substitute goods are, let's say, Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Again, I'm going to draw two different markets. And what I will do is the same thing. I'm going to increase the price of Pepsi, and this will cause a movement along the demand curve only. And the quantity of Pepsi is basically, quantity demanded of the Pepsi is basically decreasing. So quantity demanded of Pepsi is decreasing, but you want to drink that caffeinated beverage. You cannot drink Pepsi anymore because the price of Pepsi is really high. So you can go to another market. You can substitute Pepsi with another good, which you might think that they are just the same. So that's why you can go to Coca-Cola market and you can say, hey, I cannot buy a lot from the Pepsi market, so let me buy from the Coca-Cola market. So you will increase the demand in the Coca-Cola market. That's why Coca-Cola market demand curve will shift to right. As you can see, there is a positive relationship. When the price of one good or the related good increases, the demand of the other good is going to decrease for the substitutes. That's the main idea for the substitutes. Let me give you some example about the complements. Biscuits and gravy. People tend to eat those things together. Milk and cereal, printers and toner, peanut butter and jelly, whiskey and Coke. Substitutes, Coke and Pepsi, as I give you before. Snickers, Milky Way, they are just similar chocolates. Butter and margarine, Pizza Hut and Domino's. The next shifter is changes in tastes and preferences. So a good may become more fashionable or may come into season. So basically, when a good becomes more fashionable, people in their mind, people think that I have to buy that good because the fashion is that good right now. You have to buy it. So your preferences towards that item has changed already. That's why the demand of that good is going to shift right. And the reverse can happen too. A good may go out of style or out of season. So that's why you might, in your head, you might think that, hey, it's out of style. I shouldn't buy this thing. That's why the demand of the good is going to decrease and it's going to shift to left. The last sentence is actually giving a really good example. The lower demand for frozen pizza in summer. In summer, people tend to go outside because it's hot. They want to get fresh air. So basically, instead of having a frozen pizza in your home, go out, take some fresh air, eat the fresh pizza. That's why people tend to decrease the demand for frozen pizza. And the demand for frozen pizza is going to shift left. Also, new information about a good can change the demand in the positive way or in the negative way. The next shifter is future expectations. When I say future expectations, I mean what is going to happen to the price of that good. For example, the current price of the good you want to buy is $100, but in the future, you know that there will be a huge discount. In the Black Friday, you know that the price of that good is going to be $50. So when do you want to purchase that good? Do you want to purchase that good today, or do you want to purchase that good in Black Friday? Of course, you want to pay less. That's why today you're going to decrease your demand, but instead you will buy more in the future. That's why when we say that the future price expectation or the future expected price of that good is going to be lower, we will say that the demand for the current, for today, should go down. That means demand should shift to left for today. But if the opposite thing happens, let's say the price of the good is $100 and you think that there's a huge inflation. Inflation means increase in prices in percentage. Of course, we're going to cover that part later. But when you expect huge inflation in the future and you expect to see a price tag like 150 for that good, of course you want to buy that good today. That's why your demand will increase today and the demand will shift to right. The next demand shifter, is the number of the buyers. If you have more individual buyers in the market, that means we have more demand. That's why we will say that If the number of buyers increases, the demand will increase and the demand will shift to right. Vice versa, of course. When the number of buyers decreases, demand will decrease and the demand is going to shift left. Aging, immigration, war, birth rates, these kind of things can also change the number of the buyers in the market and it can affect the demand. Now let's see the multiple effects. I explained you a little bit before, substitutes and the complements. And I want to explain this to you again on the slides. Goods are often related, I told you. We divide the goods into two related items like substitutes and the complements. And now when we are trying to understand the substitutes and the complements, we are actually analyzing the change in the both markets at the same time. For example, let's take that easy example, the relationship between the peanut butter and the jelly. Now, the event is price of peanut butter increases. First of all, we will try to analyze what happens in the peanut butter market. Then this change, the change in the peanut butter market will affect the jelly market. So the price is increasing. That's why we are moving from point A to point B, movement along the demand curve. And we know that we want to eat our peanut butter always with jelly. These are complements. That's why since you are consuming less peanut butter, you want to consume less jelly. This will cause a shift in the demand of jelly and the demand will shift to left. Now let's do some practices. I will give you some events and you will try to explain or you will try to understand what happens. The market we are talking about is Oreos and the price of Oreos is decreasing. So basically we are at point A initially, then after the price reduction, we move to point B and the quantity demanded is increasing, price is decreasing. There is a movement along the demand curve. Basically demand is not shifting. Now, right now we are talking about the movie tickets market. And the event we want to talk about is the price of movie tickets increases, the opposite of this previous slide. Now we start at point A, price is increasing from 15 to 20, and as a result, the quantity demanded in that market is decreasing from 3 to 2. That's why there is only a movement along the demand curve, demand is not shifting. The next practice is about Big Mac's market. The event is the price of a Burger King Whopper falls. So we know that Big Macs and the Whopper, they are substitutes. If the price of Whopper decreases, you want to buy more of Whopper. So you don't need to buy Big Macs anymore because Whopper is cheaper. That's why the demand in the Big Mac market will decrease. The next market we are going to talk about is steak dinners. The event is you get a promotion and pay raise at your job. So basically, we are talking about the high quality diner and you get a promotion, you become richer. That's why since it's a normal good, we want to buy more of that good. The next one is Sam's Club soda. Sam's Club is a supermarket in USA. So when you get a promotion and got a pay raise at your job, you become rich, but Sam's Club soda here is considered as inferior good. That's why instead of buying Sam's Club soda, you will buy an Italian club soda or Italian soda or sparkling water, whatever, a high quality sparkling water. That's why the demand for the Sam's Club soda is going to decrease. And the next market we are going to analyze is pizza. The event is the price of your favorite beverage falls. Here you need to consider pizza and your favorite beverage as the complement. And if you're giving less money for your favorite beverage, you want to consume more of that favorite beverage. So basically, your quantity demanded is increasing, Okay, but you want to drink that beverage with pizza, so you will demand more pizza. That's why demand is increasing. So in the next example, we are going to cover the old man's demand for oranges, and the event we are going to analyze is the doctors discovered that oranges cure baldness. So when old man thinks that when they eat oranges, they will have more hair, of course they're going to increase the demand. And in this case, demand is increasing a lot. It's going to shift to right. I have a couple more practice to do. This one is about Pepsi. So the good in question is always going to be Pepsi, and we are going to consider what happens to changing quantity demanded uh, when we have the change in quantity demanded and when we have the change in demand, basically the shift. So I'm going to give you a couple of questions, and you need to understand in which question we have the change in quantity demanded and in which one we have the change in demand. The first question is, assume you like Pepsi and your income increases. Basically, we know that the Pepsi is a normal good. It might be inferior good for some people, but generally it's a normal good. So basically, when you have more income, you tend to buy more Pepsi for each price level, and the demand for Pepsi is going to increase. So we have a change in demand here. The demand curve will shift to right. And the next question, assume the price of Pepsi decreases. As you know that when the change is coming from a price factor only, that means only a price change, this will cause a movement along the demand curve. So basically the quantity demanded will change, but the demand itself will stay intact. And the correct answer is, since we have the law of demand, it says that the price and the quantity is inversely related. The price is decreasing, the quantity demanded should increase. The correct answer should be C. The next question is, assume the price of Coke decreases. We know that the Pepsi and Coke, they are substitute goods. So if the price of Coke is decreasing, you will buy more of Coke, and there's a movement along the demand curve for the Coke market. But since you are getting that caffeine from Coke market, you don't need Pepsi market a lot this time. That's why you're going to decrease the demand in the Pepsi market. So the correct answer should be B. And in the Pepsi market, we have the change in demand, but in the Coke market, we have the change in quantity demanded. Finally, in this slide, I'm trying to summarize all of the shifts. What kind of changes affects the demand and decreases the demand? And in this part, in this column, I give you the changes that causes an increase in the demand curve. So I advise you not to memorize this slide, because most of the shifters I taught you today is basically really intuitive. You all know these kind of ideas or the explanation before. You just need to think a little bit more harder. My advice, do not memorize this slide. And the last thing we are going to do is a class activity. So you know, what does a market mean? You know the demand, and using your knowledge, you have to answer that question. But assume that you are working in a restaurant and your boss knows that you are taking course on economics, and he or she trusts you and asks that following question. She wants your opinion. Which of the following will increase the demand for drinks the most? So we want a increase in the demand. That's important. That means change in demand, a shift in the demand. We don't care about the quantity demanded change. So option A says the reduction in the price of a complementary good, such as an appetizer. Option B, reduction in the price of drinks. C, both bold. So basically, we have to focus on option A and B. Let's start with B, reduction in the price of drinks. If we decrease the price of drinks, we know that that's a change in quantity demanded, a movement along the demand curve. So the demand itself is not going to shift. That's why B shouldn't be correct. Let's check option A. reduction in the price of a complementary good such as an appetizer. If you reduce the price of the appetizer, people tend to buy more appetizers. So this is a change in the quantity demanded for the appetizer market. But people, when they eat more appetizer, of course, they're going to be thirsty, so they will order more drinks. And this price change in the appetizer market will affect the drinks market in a different way. In the drinks market, it is going to cause a shift in the demand. Since the appetizers are cheaper, they eat more appetizer, they tend to drink more drinks. That's why the demand for the drinks is going to increase and it's going to shift to right. So the correct answer should be A. And the last slide today that I'm going to show you is a video clip from the Hot Soccer Proxy movie. And in that movie, there's a firm who is selling hula hoop. And after watching that movie, you will understand in which part of the video clip we will have the change in quantity demanded and in which part we have the change in demand. And I have the link here embedded in this box. If you click that link, you can watch the movie, but unfortunately right now, because of the copyright claims coming from YouTube, I cannot show that clip to you. But when you watch the movie, initially, the owner of the firm is decreasing the price a lot, and this is a change in the quantity demanded actually. But something happens, and people or the kids, their preferences are suddenly changed towards hula hoop. So they want to buy hula hoop like crazy. And this will cause a change in the demand. That's the difference that you have to understand after watching that video clip. So we come to the end of the week 3, part 1. And next week we will cover supply. Today is the end of the video. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you for watching Akademi Ekonometri. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.